this Phoenix Denver series. This is another thing. Not trying to bring up LeBron, but this is for Kevin Durant. We talked about this last year, the Kevin Durant thing, and when they got swept by Boston. And we talked about. Matter of fact, it came up in my memories today on Facebook, and I had every fucking mind to download it and bring it up on the show, but I forgot I was working. And we were talking about all the players that were better than Kevin Durant after the sweep. Right, and we got up to about 6 or 7 names.
Oh yeah. I remember we talked when Tatum really was the better man during that whole series last year.
Kevin Durant cannot get swept in back-to-back playoff series.
He's about to.
He cannot get swept. The amount of excuses they built for a man that they have called the best player in the league for the past 3 to 4 to 5 years. The amount of excuses I hear for this guy, it cannot happen. First of all, if you're that guy, I don't care how great the other team is and what your team is missing. First of all, Chris Paul is an 80-year-old man. That fucking man is not the reason why you're going to get swept.
And he's hurt.
You know what I mean? He's always hurt.
Yeah. But
he's always hurt in every playoff run.
He's likely to miss the rest of the series.
He was 16 years old hurt in the playoff run. He's always hurt in every playoffs. I don't want to hear. There's no excuse. You have Devin Booker, a top 5 scorer in the game. You have Ayton. You have be a leader. Get these guys ready. You can't get swept in back-to-back years. You couldn't get swept last year against a young Boston team. For some kind of way, God's grace, that swept under the rug. Okay, but, when you had a healthy Kyrie, you had a healthy Brooklyn team, that was swept under the fucking rug. And then this year, if you get swept by a Denver team that nobody believed in, that's unforgivable, man.
Even Anthony Edwards didn't get swept.
Not even Anthony Edwards and the terrible Timberwolves. Those guys are shitty. They play shitty. They have a terrible superstar. I guess now Anthony, and he should be regarded as the superstar of that team.
He is.
They should have one star, period. That's a one-star team.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about any other stars on that team. That just can't happen, Pink.
No, I agree with you. And to me, when I look at the flaws of Kevin Durant, the biggest single one is he just is incapable of being a genuine leader. He is a hooper. Mm-hmm. He loves the game, but he is just that.
Well, like you said,
he doesn't do the leadership.
Curry leads in other ways, and you can see it. And I agree with that. That's why I didn't say anything to that point. You can see that. Durant, like you said, there's no avenues of leadership.
None.
There's not the leading by play.
Even with all the dysfunction in Brooklyn, and you could probably track every single quote that he had that related to sort of chemistry, team dynamic, off court. Literally, his default position is, hey man, let everybody be everybody.
Yeah,
that's it.
Let Kyrie be
That's
Kyrie.
not, that's it.
If he wants to miss 40
doesn't
games,
have anything more than that.
Yeah.
And again, when you look at this and look at what other people have accomplished in the sport and what you've accomplished, you cannot. I'm more adamant that you cannot put Kevin Durant in any top 10 or 15 all-time configuration way stronger than putting Curry in a top 7.
I'm way stronger on
5 to 7.
I agree.
On that.
Yeah.
Because he's just completely lacking that.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, man. That is what it is.
That's what it is. And what happens is when you're only a scorer, and which KD is, and he's an average defender. I mean, he can, and that by that meaning he can defend the paint. He can, but even that, he's an average defender because he could do that decent. Okay, but even in that point, he's not a Giannis at that or whatever. Okay. He has off games still, which everybody does.
Right.
So when you're but they put him in this strategy where he's the greatest scorer of all time. He's 7 foot and he can dribble and he can shoot. He's not. He's not the greatest scorer of all time. He's not. I can name 3 or 4 or 5 guys I would want to score the ball before KD.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I know he's an elite scorer. He is an elite scorer. But what I'm saying is, you when you guys throw out these superlatives, these empty superlatives, the greatest scorer of all time, the best player in the world, and he's better than this guy, better than LeBron, better than you can't throw out empty superlatives like that to a guy that continuously just does not show up when he needs to. Game 2, you just can't go down 2-0 like they did. Went out like a sack of nuts. and he had a bad game.
And
That just cannot happen.
and it was a 97-87 game. Like, that's just not even how basketball's being played right now.
No.
Like, how do you get drawn into a tractor pull like that when you're an elite scorer, you're coupled with Booker, and neither team defends particularly well?
I did two things. I read an article and I was listening to the guy who wrote the article talk about it, and it's basically a really detailed. I'll send it to you. It was a detailed thing about Kevin Durant's career and the offenses that he has been on. Right, so. And OKC is, first of all, it's always been heavy isolated. So in OKC was a heavy isolation ball, right? Yeah. Russ takes a turn, KD takes a turn, all right? And that was somewhat successful, but they had a ton of pieces that would come in and generate and help. But still, ultimately, they failed because it was too heavy in isolation, all right? Just Black said, y'all starting early. Yeah, we had to start early today, man. I got to catch Joel Embiid, the MVP, on the court. So heavy isolation. Then he goes, from OKC, whatever that was, 8-9 years to Golden State. He fits in the system. He does. But he had 2 or 3 blow-ups that this guy explained with Coach Kerr saying, like, hey, man, I need to do me. I need more isolations. I don't want to run around 2 to 3 streets. That's Steph and Clay. Like, he didn't want to fit in. He wasn't comfortable doing it.
Right.
And that's very misleading when people say, oh, he came in and he fit like a glove. No, he didn't want to play that way.
Right. But what he gave them was what made that group so good was that they could do the movement stuff. But then when things got stale, they still had this guy that could just do the one-on-one thing.
For whatever you want to say, 6 to 7 times a game.
Yeah.
But that's not going to work 25 to 30 times a game.
No, 100%.
You're not going to win like that. And in Brooklyn, it was a shit show,
if you go back to Jordan, if you go back to Kobe and Shaq, the triangle offense is not the be-all and end-all of basketball.
Right.
But what that did for those teams, what Phil Jackson was always smart enough to know, was that you gave a fluid structure that engaged all 5 players on the court that was your basis, because you always know that your elite guys can go one-on-one, ISO, get a post-up, do what they want to do when you need to. But rather than just having the game turn into 50 possessions of ISO Shaq, ISO Kobe, or ISO Michael, ISO Scotty, you had this basic structure that kept the other players engaged.
Exactly.
And when you needed to go and just ISO, it was still there. That would always be there with great players. But the great thing was he got them into buy-in enough to just keep everybody engaged and keep some little bit of movement going, so the game's not total isolation.
Yeah. And Black says again, I think KD is realizing exactly what you guys are saying. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I
could have saved him a lot of time and a lot of bad career decisions. Put me on staff, KD. You got the lifetime deal with Nike. Throw me a few shekels.